Welcome back. We are now in week 5 of the Teaching Pronunciation course and video 8, and part 1, part 2, and part 3 will focus on explaining English syllable stress, rhythm, and timing, giving you an overview and ideas on how to teach these areas. When you talk about the world's languages, you need to talk about how important to a particular language the concept of syllable stress is. And there are two ends of a continuum. At one end of the continuum, there are languages where stress is extremely important to the transmission of meaning and to the listeners being able to process the speech. English is at that stress-based end of the continuum. And at the syllable-based end of the continuum, it's not as important. Romance languages such as French and Italian are towards the syllable end, syllable stressed end of the continuum, and to the English ear they have a softer, more musical, more romantic quality. English being a Germanic language, coming from the Germanic language group, has a very strong syllable stress, and we get a beat like da 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 da. So in English, the syllable stress can affect, number one, the comprehensibility of an individual word to a native speaker. For example, if you say to me tattoo, I might say pardon, because I'm expecting tattoo. The rhythm of an utterance, how it sounds musically to the ears of the listener, and the amount of time it actually takes to say something is also dependent on the placement and number of stresses. The textbook the very first textbook I used when I taught pronunciation was Rebecca Dower's Accurate English. Prior to that, I had just used class notes in the courses that I was teaching, but I really enjoyed teaching from this book. It has very clear explanations. And she gives an example of how important syllable stress is to the English listener in terms of recognizing which word or which phrase is being said. And it's a classic example, and when you listen to it, you can really see how the movement of the stress changes the vowel pattern, even though the consonants at play are the same. And most languages at the syllable-based end would not be able to so clearly express meaning with only these shifts. So listen to me say them. Innocence, with the stress on the first syllable, in essence, with the stress on the second syllable of what is being said, and in a sense, with a final syllable stress. And quickly the native speaker of English can identify which one of those is said. Listen again. Innocence, in essence, in a sense. We can also see the power of English syllable stress when we look at homographs. We have about 186 total noun-verb pairs in English where the words look exactly the same in terms of spelling, but have different pronunciations. The pronunciations differ in terms of the vowels because of the stress change and because of the syllable stress itself. So we have the noun record, as in I bought a record, and the verb record. He's not going to record until next year. We have the noun convert in terms of a person who changes religion, and we have the verb convert, and so on and so on. And so in most languages you wouldn't be able to use syllable stress in order to change the part of speech of a word. So in order to teach English syllable stress or English word stress, which words in a sentence get stress, you need to understand the following topics. Stress in English, how important is this to English, so that you can make sure that your students understand that and have buy-in into making the change. Content versus function words, so that you can identify which words in the sentence itself or the utterance would have a strongly stressed syllable. Syllables, so that you can say it's the first syllable, the second syllable, the third syllable. What happens when there's no stress on a syllable and the syllable's vowel changes to schwa? Minor stress, major stress. Rules for stress placement, because certainly in Latin-based words we have rules, for example, immigration, justification, where the stress always occurs before the suffix "tion, and stress and rhythm, how they interact with each other. All right, now I'm going to tell you some pedagogical lies or gross overgeneralizations, and these are pedagogical lies, meaning things that are not exactly true, maybe not very precisely based on research, but that actually work in the classroom very well. We know that content words have more stress in a sentence than function words. Now let's give them a value so we can help students to make sure that that differentiation is clear. So let's say all content words have a value of 3 or more, and in fact if I was really dramatic, I could make them up to about probably a 7. So we're going to make a kind of scale, and I often do this on the board or on a flip chart on the side wall, and I can go over to it and say, make that stronger, make it more powerful. You told me you're really dramatic in your first language, let's try it here. All content words have a value of 3 or more, and they're necessary for giving meaning. They need to be prominent. One-syllable function words, and some two-syllable function words as well, if you go back to look at the preposition discussion, have a value of only 1. They give only grammar information, and they need to be de-emphasized. Some words worth a 3, give, store, great, and softly, and some words worth a 1, a, the, of, and am. How about these? Reviewing our knowledge of content and function words. Stop is a content word. In, being a preposition, is a function word. Faster is a content word. Disgusting is a content word. And should is a function word. So a quick review. Content words include nouns, main verbs, adjectives, most adverbs, numbers, WH question words, although they're not as emphasized as strongly as other words. Usually the words that occur to the end of the phrase or the utterance are stronger than the beginning ones, and the WH question words fall at the beginning. Demonstratives, this, that, those, these. All negative auxiliaries and modals and words. So for example, if I say no or never, shouldn't, can't, isn't. And intensifiers, which is a category to include words that actually are a little bit stronger than the average content word. I was so happy, I was really convinced, it was totally beautiful. And then we have our function words, articles, pronouns, one-syllable prepositions, conjunctions, positive auxiliary verbs, positive modals, and the weak verbs, to be, to get, and to have. And as we mentioned earlier, if I say I have a house, I'm definitely going to sound really full of myself. I would normally say I have a house and really reduce the function words. So let's examine the content words in 5 English sentences and start to think about the way that the emphasis on the content words will play into the rhythm or the music of the way that I'm speaking. Number 1, no. Definitely I'll be bringing people's attention to myself with a head shake, with probably some direct eye contact, and with emphasis on that word when I use it in a sentence. Number 2, the cat died, the cat died, the cat died. You can hear that the last content word, which is key to the meaning here, is even stronger than the word cat, and the definite article, is reduced. Number 2 would be the cat died. Number 3, the dog's chewing a big bone, the dog's chewing a big bone, the dog's chewing a big bone. You can again hear the peaks on my voice on dogs, chew, big, and bone. The dog's chewing a big bone. Number 4, can you pass me the salt? 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 The more times you say it to yourself, the more you can really hear the peaking on pass and salt. They are at least 3 times stronger than the other words. Listen again. Can you pass? Can you pass me the salt? Can you pass me the salt? Pass and salt are at least 3 times stronger than the can, you, me, and the, which have a value of around 1. And number 5, we have only really easy and done that are keywords here. The rest is all grammar. I say, it would have been easy for me to have done it. It would have been easy for me to have done it. It would have been easy for me to have done it. And you may be thinking, oh, I would never reduce the have there to a. But listen to yourself for a few days, and I think you'll find some instances where you've gone at least to schwa v and maybe even just to a. It would have been easy for me to have done it. So sometimes when I'm explaining content versus function words and their ratio or relative value, I use X's instead of the number 3 and the number 1, or I use the size of the words or the underlining. You definitely need to highlight this factor with a visual cue, as well as using the auditory cue of your voice or a recording or whatever it is you're using. So look at the rules again. All content words have one major stress with a value of XXX. So we have cat, cattle, catalyst. And in each of those we have a content word. Whether it's 1 syllable, 2 syllables, or 3 syllables, one of those syllables will have a value of 3 X's. And those words within the sentence themselves will have a value of 3 against the non-emphasized words. So you can see that this rule applies both at the sentence level and at the within a word level. So at the sentence level it's usually called word stress, and at the word level it's usually called syllable stress. But you do hear those terms used differently in some textbooks, or see them used. 1 syllable function words have a value of X or XX occasionally in natural utterances. For example, okay, The O is probably a 2 there, 2X, and the 3 is on the A. Okay, okay, okay. I'm definitely not at a 1 on the O. It has some stress. The cat died. That would be a 1-3-3 sentence. The dog's chewing a big bone. Can you pass me the salt? It would have been easy for me to have done it. It's also important to consider the place of schwa in the production of the rhythm of English, how content words are produced, etc. Schwa is the smallest possible, still acoustically viable vowel sound that we can make. It's pronounced as a. It's written in the International Phonetic Alphabet as an upside down backwards E, and it's a mid-central vowel. And it's the most commonly occurring vowel sound in English, and any vowel letter can represent the schwa sound. So when we have these reductions within a word, or a function word that is reduced to totally non-stress, we end up with a schwa. So in number 1, the article a becomes a schwa, but so does the u in the word suggestion. So I would say a good suggestion. And a and sug in suggestion have the same sound, a good suggestion. In number 2, later on tonight, the O in tonight becomes a schwa. In number 3, the E in revealing clothes. In number 4, both the article and the A in machine, a washing machine, a washing machine. Number 5, the I in divided, but not the Y on the end of country, because there's still a minor stress there, so it becomes an E without the Y glide, but not a schwa, a divided country. Number 6, I had a lettuce. Both the a and, for my pronunciation and my dialect, the OF, the of, becomes a schwa, sometimes with a v on the end and sometimes not, and the u in lettuce. I had a lettuce, I had a lettuce, I had of lettuce. In 7, the a, the e in broken, and the I in promise are all schwas, a broken promise. Buckingham Palace, actually the E in Buckingham and the E and the A in Palace are both schwas. And in number 9, the A in the article am, the O in anchor, the I in, and the a before storm are all schwas, an anchor in a storm.